Hello, everyone, and welcome to part two. Oh, there we go. It's still working. All right. Welcome to part two of our debate with the 2021 July papal candidates. Today we have um, the rest of them, and also Jackson the second because he requested to be here. So he's going to be here. Beforehand, I flipped a die, like you do. So the order is random. We got Taylor first, then Jackson, then Dacifer, then Vayda. The format is exactly the same as last time, so I'm not going to go over it. And then let's see what. Okay.
Oh man.
All right. Shh. Taylor, you. Okay, the format is you each have 60 seconds to answer a question. And any of the candidates, after they've answered, may request a 30-second rebuttal if they want. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next person. And you cannot rebuttal someone's opening or closing statement. All right, there we go. Okay, the first question is not a question, it's your opening statement. So we will begin with Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor. Nice to meet you. uh, what do I say? Do I just say what I need to do, or what I'm going to do, what they want to hear?
You open with just anything. Like tell people who you are, what are things you stand for. Yeah. But you are out of
I stand
time.
for.
So I
I
am gonna
stand.
have to move
Okay.
on to the next person.
Fuck.
All right, Jackson, go ahead.
Hello again. It's me, Jackson. This is probably you guys probably know who I am already. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my
I don't
opening
know
remarks
you.
again. That I'm attempting to run for pope. I hope to be a good pope and fix the problems the church is having right now. The church is in a pretty stable state, but I do think the church needs to focus on getting new members and focusing on keeping the church from collapsing with some of these new policies that people are trying to introduce that I don't think will work out. Um, and yeah, I'm here to educate and fight for the people of the church.
All right, thank you, Jackson. I would also like to remind the other candidates to please not talk over someone else while they're speaking or make noise while they're making their statements. Treat everyone with respect so that they don't also interrupt you. Okay, Dacifer, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dacifer II. I'm running for Pope to integrate the principles of democracy and equality in the church more strongly and make the church more active by expanding it into possibly other social medias in order to possibly garner some more people in the church.
All right, thank you. And now, Vayda the first, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. It's me, your current Pope, Vayda the First. I'd like to come here tonight and congratulate all of you for making it into the papal debates for the papal election happening next month. I'd also like to announce that in this papal debate, I am no longer running for Pope. I'm just going to begin with that statement. I am here as a tag team partner for my running partner, as I am running for Archbishop June the 1st, as we merge our parties together into this crazy campaign. We're calling it the Lotta campaign because it's going to have a lot of good stuff with it, and it's going to be undefeatable. And I hope you all the best of luck. But I would like to say that my part of the campaign is the Divine Revolution and trying to bring in the divine roots back into Bidenism.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
And June the 1st, go ahead.
Okay, hello. I'm June the 1st. If I so I yeah. If you were to I don't know what to I don't know how to speak.
All right, thank you. We are now going to move on to the next question. All right. What would each of you do in your first week in office? Taylor?
What I would do, oh boy, um, I would I would review all the statutes and everything, make sure that my ideas won't be repeated, and I will try and work hard with the majority of the people and express their voices, their opinions, their needs, their wants, and just make the church great because it is already great. I love the place, and yeah, I'll just continue to improve it, keep the trend going.
All right. Thank you. Jackson the second, you may now go.
So again, I've said I think this already, but in my first week of office, I would begin. I think the first thing I would do is expanding the council, probably adding 2 more seats and increasing, if possible, the council election cycles or frequency. So there's more elections more often. Um, Maybe rolling out again, depending on support and what the council decides is the best solution, more programs that are church wide that increase church activity, increase people within the church, more programs to educate people on pastoral lore and easier ways for parties to disseminate information about themselves and about other parties, um, to just make it easier for people to understand exactly what a policy is working for, the goal of a party is, and the exact legal documentation that a party has. Just things like that to make the church easier for normal people to understand because it is a lot of information all at once and it can be very overwhelming for people. I think that would be my first
You're
priority.
just about out of time. Thank you. Dacifer, you may now go.
Thank you. So, in my first week running in the of being in the office would be that I would examine the People's Council more thoroughly because I believe that there has been a miscommunication in somewhere. I would review all the statutes as best as I can, and I would, in general, try to expand the church into possibly maybe more social medias, making those more active, and attempt to make the laws a little more democratic towards everybody. That may increase activity in the church as well.
All right. Thank you. Vayda, you may now go.
Yeah, in my first week in office, I will work with future Pope June the 1st to help reform the Archbishop role, and bring more of a divine aspect to it. Because at the moment, it's more of a ceremonial type role, where we're just doing a lot of like holding services and overseeing the First Council things, and that's really all the Archbishop really does. So I'd work with her on some of that, and also, like Jackson II said, I feel like one of the big issues we've had in the church currently is not having a lot of activity, and I feel like one good way of doing that is like how we've previously tried to do with game nights and trying to make more regularly scheduled things like that, integrating services and maybe the podcast and stuff like that to bring public discussion and gathering.
All right. Thank you. And June the 1st, you may now go.
Okay. What I would do in my first week of office. I would definitely work with the party to pass legislation to help reform in the archbishop role in the church and set more regular gatherings for church members. And get more interaction with the members of the church. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Moving on. Why are you a better choice for the church than the other candidates? Taylor.
That is a great question. I don't even know how it got here, but I think the main reason that I would be better is to kind of put some new blood into the papal line. You know, a lot of people that are here, they have been they're either incumbents or they are been involved heavily in the kind of upper circles of the church in just bringing in something in here, kind of get a fresh take, new start. Yeah, starting, just kind of starting new.
All right.
I'm
Oh, thank you. Jackson, you may now go. Unless someone has a rebuttal. All right, Jackson, go ahead.
I would first off like to start off by saying, at least of the candidates in the call right now, there are no bad candidates that I really oppose entirely as a person. I definitely don't agree with all of the political views of all of the candidates in the call right now, but I think that there's any really bad choice. None of these will be bad popes. But I think the biggest thing that I have over them is that I'm proven. I've been pope before. I was a good pope. I think. I think most people agreed that my approval rating was pretty high for most of my papacy. Um, I was able to solve a lot of, or at least work towards solving a lot of the issues that the church currently faces and faced when I first became pope. So I think that I know what I'm doing. I know how to solve these issues. I know the legal system that the church has. I know how it works, and I know how to really fix a lot of the issues that it currently faces.
All right, Dacifer, go ahead.
So, personally, I feel like that I'm a better choice for the church than the other candidates because I will attempt to, as what's the right word for it? Basically, fight for the common man, examine all sides of every argument, and try to make every voice be heard. In recent times, I've tried to be more neutral as to not have any useless biases involved in any argument. Yeah. And, well, also one more thing. I feel like it's good to have some new blood every once in a while in anything.
All right, Vayda first. You may not go.
Yeah, so I believe I'm a better choice for the church because looking at past numbers and scandals and looking at the wiki, you can find a lot of interesting things about the past popes. We've had the Corona crisis, we've had the Crusades from Garrett, we've had Jackson the First and his, whole God debacle and the Ricardo Milos crisis. But if you look at my leadership and even my time serving with Jackson II as Archbishop, it's been a very smooth sailing ship. I think I bring in a lot of stability and a lot of good opinions to this church. And I think, under June the 1st and I's reign, that, will really bring a nice atmosphere that will hopefully bring a lot of progress and development to our church as a whole. And also, I don't think any of the other ones are really tapping into that divine element, the real religion of the Holy Church of Joe Biden, putting the Holy Church into the Holy Church of Joe Biden. And that's my goal.
Thank you. All right, and June the 1st. Go ahead.
Okay. Why I would be a better choice for the church than the other candidates? I agree with Jackson in that there are no bad candidates in this call right now. But if why I'm not necessarily better, but why I'm a good choice is I would be the first elected woman pope. So I think that would be pretty cool to get some diversity in there. So I think that, yeah.
May I rebuttal?
Of course.
To tag on that, it'd be very much the Kamala Harris of the Holy Church of Joe Biden, taking the leadership role, and I think that's really great to see that progress, both as a society and as a church, to going forward, the first woman of color elected to the Holy Church of Joe Biden papal seat, and I think that'd just be amazing to see, Charles. Just gonna say that right now, because at the moment it's only been white men and, well, Actually, I don't think Alex was a pope, but and then Josh's little sister. But we need diversity, and I hope that's the way we get it.
All right. Moving on to the next question. As Pope, you serve as the people's representative in affairs dealing with the divine. How will you serve the people, or how will you serve as Pope and bring the people the words of our gods? Taylor DeVers, go ahead.
Well, obviously, you said in order to serve the people, we're trying to serve the people. Sorry. So obviously, in order for us to serve, we need to, listen to the people, and you need to explain their trials, their tribulations, what they all want, and asking our holy Lord all these questions and getting his answer, his guidance, and being the people's direct communication is the most vital thing for Pope. Like Vayda said, putting the holiness back in the church. You just need to basically be the telephone to the Lord.
All right. Thank you. Jackson the second, you may now go.
I think the ways that I could help, spread the gospel of the church is that one, I think I'm a people's person. I'm pretty good at interacting with people and spreading messages in ways that are easy to understand. And I generally get along well with most people, which would be helpful in that. I've also had, direct visions from Biden in the past on leading me on decisions I should make. I've had them recently, and I don't see why they would suddenly stop. um, I think I would be able to work with other members in the church well to help disseminate the good word of Biden to the masses within the church.
All right. Dacifer, you may now go.
So, what I would do is I would bring back weekly Tuesday services, basically the same thing that Vayda has been doing for the past month or more. And I'd probably continue the podcast. Well, not probably, but I would, because one, it might spread the church more into the world, I guess, and well, to spread the word of Bidenism to other people to really keep the whole religion alive itself instead of just, well, I don't know. That's my response.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor rebuttal.
Oh, of course. Go ahead.
While I do agree that Tuesday services are a lot of fun to be a part of and very important to staying close to the roots of Lord Joe Biden, I do believe that realistically, unfortunately, the amount of time and preparation that goes into it, as far as expanding and experimenting with the format of it, can be a bit too much for weekly. I think bi-weekly might be the sweet spot. But at the moment, I think the once a month is good, and I hope to employ more other divine features
You're out
into
of
the
time,
church
but thank you for your
besides theirs.
contribution.
problem.
And also, it is now your turn to
Sorta.
answer the question. Oh,
Exactly.
or
Take
wait,
that. No.
wait, what did you say, Dacifer?
No, I'd like to say that Vida made a really great point. Perhaps having the Tuesday service is a good idea.
Okay. Veda, go ahead and answer the question.
So as I guess Archbishop, not as Pope, so I'm just going to tailor the question to that. I do plan on what we previously talked about in the last podcast, the first and only podcast. I'd recommend listening to it if you haven't. Is making a push for a divine revolution of sorts, in order to get everyone put together into more of a better force to help expand the Baidicon and divine with the gods in order to get these stories written, so we have more of a word to go off of and more of a connection as a whole. I think the barrier between mortal and God at the moment is a very hazy one, and I think it's separating, and we just need to reach through and grab their word and understand it and define it. And possibly we've been thinking of another thing, almost bring the bishop circle back, but in a different way. But maybe June the 1st can tell us a little more about that.
All right, thank you. June the 1st, go ahead.
So I just I feel like we definitely, going back to the Tuesday services, I feel like they definitely they're a good add in to the church, and they should be more frequent, but not super frequent as every week as they said, because there is a lot of time and effort that needs to be put into it. But those are definitely really good interactions with the the people, and yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next question. Do you support the Big Biden party's People's Circle? Or People's Council, sorry. And if not, do you have some alternative? Or do you feel that the entire endeavor is not needed? Taylor, go ahead.
It is complicated because, for one, there's good and bad to the People's Council. One, it makes it more directly involved. It's basically just a direct democracy instead of representative. However, as it conflicts with everyone's intentions to grow larger. So I have a feeling that while it is a good idea, it would only work if we stayed small. So I would have to say absolutely not. It would not work.
All right, thank you. Jackson the second, you may now go.
I said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't really support the People's Council. One's from a logistical standpoint. I think the logistical aspect of being able to get a large majority of the church actively participating in all of the um, legislation that will come up, especially since that all of these candidates have said a desire to increase um, the amount of stuff the church is doing. I mean, there's more, stuff going through the council, meaning that there'll be more votes happening more often. And it could just get to the point where you would have a very small number of people voting. And if that's what's happening, then that's not really different than our council now, except those people wouldn't necessarily be representing the views of the entire church. I also don't like the fact that as of right now, there's no very clear exact ruling and legislation on how it would work, how the votes would work. There's nothing that's super concrete. I do know Zix the first has stated some stuff in the general chat of the church, but I don't really feel that that's a significant enough legal document or legal documentation to where I or a lot of the other candidates here could support it.
All right, thank you. Dacifer, you may go.
So, in the past, I've said I don't exactly support the People's Council, but talk with Zitz the first a little more about it, because I figured maybe I should a little more information about it. And my opinion kind of changed on it. Now I kind of somewhat support it, but not as much. So basically, the People's Council. I feel like there are some things that need to be changed about it, and then it would be sort of good. For example, maybe it could be similar to the approval polls, where the church just says how much they approve or disapprove of, for example, of a god or legislation, or you get the idea. It's my comment on it.
All right, thank you. Vayda, you may now go.
I think the People's Council is a very interesting idea. When it comes to the church and voting on legislation, there's been a lot of ideas with like percentage voting and I can't think of the individual terms, but different ways of voting on council seats and legislation itself and stuff like that. Um, but what I do think would be a better idea instead of making it 100% direct democracy would be making it like a better way of allowing people to bring or maybe just support more the idea of having anyone be able to bring up legislation to the table of the council, and maybe either through education or it's like a program or something like that, in order to make more people want to pass laws and give more ideas to the council. So maybe while they're not actively voting on it, they're at least pitching their ideas out to be voted on, and something to that degree.
All right. Thank you, Vayda. June the 1st, you may now go.
Okay, do I agree with the Big Bang Party's People Council? No, I don't agree because I think there are other ways to get people integrated with lawmaking, and I think the current council is a better solution in order to reduce the craziness in the coordination needed for that.
May I somewhat rebuttal to that?
You may. Go ahead.
So, I personally think that the whole title People's Council has given people the wrong impression of the or legislation, you know. Because in reality, think about it, it would just more like just be like voting instead of having like a separate People's Council, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. There has been some talk about expanding the council even further. If elected, would you work to further expand the council? Taylor the first, go ahead.
It honestly, I don't really know. I'm gonna be honest. It's something I haven't exactly thought about. Yeah, I just don't really know. I think it's fine where it is. However, if need be, I am open to the idea, depending on what the requests of other people are.
All right. Thank you.
It's
Jackson
kind
the
of a
second.
non-answer,
Oh,
but
well, yeah.
sorry.
Jackson the
It's
second.
kind of a non-answer, but I honestly don't know.
Jackson the second, go ahead.
Okay, well, I've said in the last debate that I do think the council does need to be maybe not super expanded, or I do think adding 2 more seats would be nice to the council. And an idea that I've come up pretty recently is sort of, I guess the best way I could describe it is a split council, basically allowing the entire church to vote on supporting an issue, and then having that be used in the council debate. So the idea being that before a bill or proposal goes through the council, the entire church does almost like an approval poll on it, and then that can be used to weigh into the council's decision. So if something is going through the council and maybe a bunch of the council members don't support it, but a large majority of the church population does, maybe that could weigh into their decision and change it. So it would allow regular people to have a say in the council, but without making it a direct democracy.
All right. Thank you.
May I rebuttal
May
that?
I rebuttal to kind of ask a question?
Um.
Let Taylor rebuttal.
Okay. And then you can go after it, Vayda. Okay, Taylor, go ahead.
So, just kind of a question. Are you proposing this to kind of be a in between the People's Council and our current council?
Well, sort of, because it would allow I think the biggest issue with the council now is that we have a lot of members that are not that are running unopposed. I'm running unopposed. I know a couple of members in the church, the council are running unopposed, which means power isn't really changing. It's people with the same political views, representing the same parties, continuing to push things through. And I do think that having a kind of basically almost like an approval poll would be easy, quick to make, easy to put out. It could have like a 24-hour voting window, and then it wouldn't actually decide whether or not something gets pushed through, but it could be a mark to see how much do people like it. Sort of like how the United States does the same thing, where we have people allowed to weigh into whether or not they like a bill before it's actually voted on, and the politicians can then use that information to help make a better decision.
Okay.
Okay. And Veda, did you also want to rebuttal Jackson?
Yeah, my rebuttal was I like that idea, and I think it could also give um, more of a role to the senior counselor and to actually be kind of like the head manager of like that type of like setting up polls and almost like opening up like an office for or a new channel in the council thing where people can put in ideas and they can set up polls, and I think that's a really good idea to get more interaction.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we just did Jackson, correct? Okay, so it
Yes.
is Dacifer's turn, right?
No, those were rebuttals.
Yeah, yes, but he had answered the question and they
Oh.
were rebuttaling him, so I believe it is your turn now to answer the question.
Uh, which question was it again?
There's been talk of expanding the council, correct? That was the question we were
Oh.
on?
Yep.
Alright.
Yeah. So, I agree with, I'd say, a lot of what Jackson II said. I feel like at the moment, at the level of, I guess, popularity church is at right now, I feel like the council can remain as is, but once the council starts expanding more and more, I feel like that's when we can, let's say, actually like add 2 seats to the council. And otherwise, I don't have much to say.
All right, thank you. Veda the first, you may now go.
After hearing Jackson's idea, that definitely does change my answer a little bit. But originally, I would say expand the council more. While I do like Jackson's idea of allowing more of like the public polling to get ideas put into the debate of the council, I do think that the amount of seats they have right now is good because, like Jackson said, not a lot of people are being opposed. I think if we add more seats, then we're definitely going to have issues with getting more people to fill those seats. And personally, a lot of the issues that we have with the council right now as well is getting enough people to have a meeting even begin. So if we lower the amount of people that are needed to go into a council meeting, then we'll have more meetings hopefully. And I think where we're at right now is pretty good. Even though I was a fan of 5, I think 7's good for the moment.
All right, thank you. And then June the 1st, go ahead.
I definitely think that expanding the council, I like Jackson II's idea about that, because that's really a compromise in between the two big ideas, and it's a way to allow polls to see how many people in the church like a bill, and just it would help with more interaction and things.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. What do you see wrong with the church right now, and what would you do to fix it if elected? Taylor, go ahead.
I mainly here. Let me kind of get a fresh set. All right, my main problem now, kind of looking at it through a lens, sort of, is just general like inactivity and ignorance of the place, myself included. I am especially guilty of that. So, as Pope, I would have more things to increase engagement, and so it would kind of, with more engagement comes more diversity in the votes, and overall not as much streamlining in polls and elections of one party who's super active while everyone else is just kind of lurking, you know? So engagement is my biggest problem with the church.
All right, thank you. Jackson the second, you may now go.
I think it's important to note that right now, as opposed to during the last really when I became pope during that special election, the church is not isn't as dire of a state as it was then, coming off of Josh's refusal to sign the Constitution and then sudden resignation. I think the largest issue with the church right now is sort of like what Taylor said, with lack of participation and kind of a lack of information being spread correctly. Um, I've heard a lot of different stuff about different things. Like I've heard contradictory information from people within the same party. There's not a very clear cut and dry way to see exactly what is going on within the church, like who exactly like what exactly each party wants and what they're fighting for, and then their beliefs. And I think those would be things that we could that I would work to change, would be to increase participation in the church and to make it easier for people that are new to the church and not new to the church to find information and find to see exactly what's going on within the church and how it works.
All right, thank you. Dacifer, it is now your turn.
I think that the church is not active enough, as many of the members inside of it don't like to communicate, or more in general, are lurkers. They just don't like to generally communicate with other members of the church, or they just have the church somewhere in their Discord servers list. I would like to promote all activities and discourse in the server to make the church more active and maybe a tad bit user friendly, but I'm still deciding on that. That's just a possibility in the future. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Vayda, the first, you may now go.
Yes, thank you. There seems to be a lot of talk about these lurkers, and I feel like one of the biggest issues that I've had with them personally is not only do they not just communicate with on a regular basis in the church or run for office or um, anything like that, but when they do come into play, and we've seen this quite heavily in the last election, is while they don't do anything for the church, when they do participate, it's in these big elections, and they can make a big and huge tidal wave change in the results. So, like, if we look at election polls leading up to the last big election, like for the council, we can see like my party and other parties doing really well in their seat, and they look like they're going to win it by a landslide. And then we come and look at election day, and the results don't share the same outcome. And I think that's really a bad thing for the church, because it leads everyone to ask, what happened? Why did this happen? And I don't think it's healthy for the state of our elections. But I do hope that voter registration will help with that. But I do think that's one of the biggest problems that we need to work on.
I would
All
like to
right.
rebuttal that.
Oh, is that
Uh,
do you also?
you may
request a
go
rebuttal,
first.
Dacifer?
Sorta, yeah.
All right, you will go after Jackson because he requested first. Go ahead, Jackson.
I'm going to rebuttal that by basically agreeing with a lot of what Veda said. I do think we've had weird kind of anomalies, I guess is how I put it, with voting and um, really the percentages in polls, especially in the past. We've had some weird kind of idiosyncrasies when compared to polling data and the actual election outcomes. I think past council election is a really good one, with like especially Josh running by such a landslide, even though in the polls beforehand it didn't really look like he would. Um, and I think that is something to be said about the fact that that's the validity of that, like what that means for our polls or our elections and how secure they are and how accurate our polls are and things like that. And so I agree with Veda that I do hope that voter registration will help us in um, removing those outliers and those anomalies from within the church.
All right, and Dacifer, go ahead.
For the most part, yeah, I also agree with Vayda. Vayda, uh, I read that it can be a huge problem when, yeah, you estimate, and then all of a sudden in the actual election, it's a whole landslide, a whole different answer, I guess you could say. But yeah, I still believe that there may have been some suspicious activity in the last election, but that's all, I guess.
All right, thank you. And June the 1st, go ahead.
I definitely think that voting is the way that voting was definitely a problem. But I'm also hoping that the voter registration will help that situation. I also think that um people not being as active and um I don't remember the word in the church is a little bit of a problem, and we need more interaction. That's the word. So yeah, okay.
All right. And before we move on, I'd like to remind everyone that a rebuttal is meant for if you have, if it's to refute someone else's claim or if you have an opposing statement
Can I
to
rebuttal
what they
that?
said. No, you may not. All right,
Thank
Can
you.
I also rebuttal?
moving on.
Same here. Rebuttal.
Oh my god. Or oh my Biden, sorry.
I want to go home. How many
Excuse
more
you.
questions do we have?
There are two more and then your closing remarks. All right. With the passage of Article 14, candidates for the council were required to receive a majority vote to be elected. Do you feel a similar measure should be enacted for all elected offices in the church? Taylor, go ahead.
For starters, if we want to be a democracy, then why hasn't that happened yet? Since obviously this is a very democratically influenced church, I feel the next step in our direction is to incorporate more election, more like elective policies into said church and to get everyone in here elected, because sometimes if you're just appointed and you could be carrying the party's interests rather than the people's interests, and I've stated that is the most important thing with my designation and my planks.
All right. Thank you. Jackson the second, you may now go.
Oh, excuse me, really quick. Um, I don't think that we should increase Article 13 or Article 14. I don't think that should apply to more seats. Basically, for the same reason I said in the last debate, which is that it would make a lot of elections, especially with the way Article 14 is set up right now, with there being multiple runoffs. Um, big elections, like especially the Pope election, would take a long time. There would need to be multiple. I mean, they could take weeks or a week even. Um, and I don't think that really works. I think the idea of allowing a plurality for a lot of elections makes more sense. I do think in the council it works because, again, especially right now, most council seats only have one or two people running for them, where the chance of a runoff is pretty minor.
May I rebuttal?
Go ahead.
The thing with that is, I see where you're coming from. However, I increasing interactivity in the church that would kind of downplay the length of time needed to get everything going, as everyone can be elected, and you would have the ability to have them be not necessarily shorter length. The processing can go faster as people are more directly involved and they're able to more influence church better. So everything is be basically, my point is everything can be running smoother.
You're quite a bit over time at this
Yeah.
point, but go
I
ahead and finish that
apologize.
thought.
Can I respond to that?
I didn't make it to where you could respond to a rebuttal, but go ahead.
Um, I agree that the church needs to have more interaction, but for there to be more interaction, there has to be interesting. I don't think people would be very thrilled to vote for the same election multiple times with the same people. I also then you have the issue of running into even if one candidate gets the majority after multiple runoffs, it doesn't mean that the majority really support him. They just might like this guy better than the other guy, which doesn't really work. I think allowing the candidate that gets just the most votes to be elected makes the most sense and the majority of the positions that this church has.
All right, Dacifer, go ahead.
So, I feel that all elected officials should be the most popular possible choices with the people. So there definitely should be a similar measure enacted for all elected offices in the church.
May I rebuttal that?
Yes, go ahead.
When you say that the elected official should be the most popular, would you say that for example, in a election for like Pope, for example, let's say the end ups be one gets 40%, one gets 25%, one gets 15%. Would you say that 40% voted Pope is less popular or not the best or not the most popular? Or do you think that he needs to have 51% of the vote?
Well, I personally, well, honestly, I guess whoever gets the highest amount of votes should, well, become that.
I might have been a monkey
Is
and said
that
that
right?
wrong, but let's just say I was right.
All right. Moving on. Vayda, it is now your turn to respond to the question.
How's it going? Man, I blinked out, not gonna lie. So I think that we should not be encouraging a majority vote for other offices because I believe it works better for the council because it's more of a one or two person running anyway. To where it's much easier to see the like per seat which one gets majority. But when you have so many people running for Pope with so many different backgrounds and parties with different ideas, I think it takes away from the importance of their idea if we have to have the majority, right? So I think it's more of a fair way to do it if we have everyone running like man. Yeah, there you go. Take that. That's my take.
All right. Thank you. And June the 1st, go ahead. June the 1st? It would appear that they...
I got it. I
Oh,
got it.
never
I'm
mind.
back.
You are here. All
I
right,
did it.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I got it. Okay. I did the thing. Okay. No, because if we do that, then it's encouraging. It's the majority vote is right, but just not. I agree with the fact that that people wouldn't want to vote over and over and over and over again, for the same election. So yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you. Moving on. What will you do if elected to create more activity? How will you get people involved? Taylor, go ahead.
Believe that this is the biggest question since everyone wants to increase interactivity within the church. So, what I would do is I would bring in a similar version to the Tuesday sermon. However, I would do it differently because I actually work on Tuesdays, so I would probably have it on Wednesday, do Wednesday sermons, or at least a day that works for everyone. And I would also, game nights and just overall kind of stir activity by creating events and things to do. Because honestly, there is not much to do aside from the occasional approval poll.
All right, thank you. Jackson the second, you may go.
Jackson, I believe you muted your mic before speaking.
I did mute my. I'm very sorry about that. Having technical difficulties. I think that what I said in the past answers some of the past questions and in the past debate still hold true, and that I think the best way to create more activity in the church is do something similar to what a lot of the candidates have said, which is have some kind of big church-wide event happen every so often. The exact frequency of which would have to be determined later. Again, once I can find more information about what works for everybody. Um, and making the church be more interesting. Find a way to do that without also compromising stability. I think a lot of people feel that a lot like if you look at the church's Wikipedia, a lot of it is on when the church was really unstable. There's a large amount of written because that was also really interesting. But it's not good for the church to have instability. I think there are ways we could make the church more interesting, have more people feel like they need to get involved more often without sacrificing church stability.
All right, thank you. Dacifer, you may go.
Like I've said before, what I would do to increase the activity in the server or church, as I should say, I would continue the Tuesday service, but as Vayda said, I'd most likely make it monthly. Well, and I'd probably continue the Biden podcast that was started not too long ago. So far, there's only one episode. Check it out. Like I said, one thing I also said before was I'd most likely try to expand the Big Biden Bard. I meant the church. The church to other social medias. So yeah.
May I rebuttal that?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I do agree with most of what you said. There's one thing I don't think you did very well, and that is, I think, plugging the Joe Talks podcast episode 1. If you go into the Holy Church Joe Biden Discord server and go to the channel New Videos and scroll up a little bit, you can actually find the video there and watch it. It's a bit of a long watch, but a very entertaining one, I'll tell you that, and really tells you a lot of what we think as a church. I think Jack II, Charles, and I were in there, especially with Dacifer. A very good watch, and I really think you should watch that one. Hopefully we'll have that better advertised next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go along with Vayda here and say you should definitely go check out the new podcast. It's pretty epic. Make sure to like it, subscribe, smash that like button and all that jazz.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Little plug.
Yes, the video you will be able to find the video on the same channel that you are currently watching this debate on. If you go to the videos, it's I think 2 back. All right. And also, Vayda, it's once again your turn to answer the question.
Oh, thank you. The first thing I would we've talked about this quite a bit, but unfortunately haven't gotten into implementing yet. First of all, I think the Tuesday service idea was great. I think continuing would be great and experimenting with it a little more and maybe changing the format a little bit. Make it more interesting and hopefully promoting it more for more people. But one crazy idea I've had, I know a lot of us, are gamers, nerds, and the like. And Dungeons and Dragons is a great video game. That's not a video game. It's actually a tabletop game. but we can make it a video game and play it online. I was thinking a whole Joe Biden D&D campaign, more of loose rules so that multiple people can jump in and play whenever they can. Although it is low population at the moment, I think it may be interesting to bring, more of that Joe Biden flair back to it and imaginative. Like almost like how modern day Christianity has like video games and representations in media, kind of taking a twist on that and putting it into a game format for us to enjoy and revel in, and maybe bring together a community around that and interest to hopefully open up to more game nights and other things like that. But that's just a crazy idea I had. Might work, might not. We'll see.
All right. Thank you. And June the 1st. Go ahead.
If I was elected to create more activity, definitely the Tuesday services would continue, and I kind of agree with Vayda about the whole D&D campaign. I think that would be really cool, but I don't think that a lot of people would have the time for that, and we need more interaction to the point where people need to have the time for it. But I do think that we should do more things like game nights and services and things like that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And now each of you will have 60 seconds to make your closing statement. Taylor, go ahead.
I would just like to say thank you for bearing with me while I stumbled in the beginning. Like I established, I am new to this process, so kind of had to find my footing and think on my feet. I didn't mean for those to correlate, but you get the point. I hope to garner some support and just, like I said before, keep the upward trend going. Get this church the best it can be with all of your help.
All right. Thank you. Jackson the 2nd. Go ahead.
I think something that is important for me to say is that a lot of the people in power right now in the church, including me, are getting ready to go to college, go to work, all kinds of things. So I've been thinking of ways to sort of pass the torch along. And so this might come as a surprise to some people. I will be announcing my dropping out of the running for Pope now, because I feel that it would be unfair for me to become Pope and then leave for college right afterwards. So I'm fully endorsing June the 1st in her candidacy and Vayda as Archbishop. I think they both have great ideas. I think we could all work together, assuming I win my council seat, um, to really focus on making the church, better overall, and then allowing kind of setting everything up for younger people to take over and kind of take the torch away from those of us that are leaving for college and might not have the time to continue devoting to the church as we have in the past.
May I rebuttal that?
No, you may not rebuttal a closing statement.
God,
Um,
understandably, yes.
Dacifer, go ahead.
So, if you want a more democratic and equal church, then I believe that your vote should go to me. If you don't value that, then just feel free to vote for other people. I'd just like to say that I kind of feel like there's a slight, I forgot the word. Basically, I have a couple of problems, negative problems, with the big Biden party and people associating bad things with it. So that may have given me a bad reputation, but that's all.
Thank you. Vayda, go ahead.
You know, oh wow. I'm looking forward to what June the 1st and I are able to achieve with the new union of the New Progressive Conservative Party and the New Progressive Party joined together for this election, and to see what legislation we're able to pass and see how far we're able to progress this church for the better. And I just really hope that you all, when you're done reading this podcast, or sorry, when you're done listening to this debate, you go into the new videos tab and you watch that podcast because it's really good. Okay.
Yeah,
And then
everyone go
once you,
smash the like button and subscribe.
well, in all seriousness, I hope you all have a blessed day. Praise Biden. And yeah, thank you all for listening.
All right. And June the 1st, go ahead.
I would just like to say that I'm very thankful for Jackson second and Vayda the first um uh, uh sayings and supporting me in my running, and I would like to thank all of you for bearing with me as I figure out how to put words into sentences that make sense. And yeah.
All right, thank you. This concludes our debate today.
Real quick,
we-
before you stop listening, I think everyone should give a big shout out to Charles for organizing this whole thing. You know,
Yeah, thank you, Charles.
love you, Charles. Shout out, Charles.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Charles.
Lotta for life.
We will be holding another debate on Tuesday the 29th. I believe the threshold is going to be 15% in the polls, so we'll see who's going to be there. And also, I do not know who's moderating. It might be me, or we might get a guest. I don't know. We'll see.
Guest moderator.
Yeah, we might try to get someone else. And it might also be a town hall style, depending on if we can get that set up. We'll see. I'm going to discuss it with the election committee. But thank you all for participating today, and thank you all who are listening in on YouTube. That's it.
Please like the video and subscribe.
Yeah,
Check
like
the
and
previous
subscribe.
videos
Slam
for
that
Joe
like
Talks
button.
episode 1.
Destroy that like
Yeah,
button.
absolutely obliterate that like button.